we see you working with Randy. You worked a little bit with Chael. Most of what we've seen from those guys and their goal is to muscle, get top control. So how does a guy who's teaching mostly, or you said you're more comfortable on the bottom, how do you mesh those when those guys are so used to trying to be on top?
It's very interesting dynamic because, I mean, I know all positions. I mean, I'm a real big turtle player. I'm very good on top. It's not like I just took the guard and tried to make the guard very high percentage. And I did it by opening my mind and finding different systems to do according to body position. But what I end up doing is taking wrestlers and teaching them how to smash the guard because I knew it so in and out that I'd be like, look, if you do this, I can't do this technique. Right. And if you go here, if you grab my head here, if you do this, you're going to pass. So you're going to have these problems. And I started getting these groups of wrestlers and being like, wow, I'm actually feeling comfortable how to smash this. And then I'm like, look, okay, and I started teaching them the top position on basically teaching them how to beat what I knew on the ground. And then it kind of formed into this old style of catch wrestling where just kind of forced people to go turtle, and then who's the better turtle fighter. Right. And that's what Chael Sonnen did to Nate Marquardt. Forced him to go turtle, held him there, and beat the snot out of him. Mm-hmm. And it's I think it might have a resurgency. Randy's really behind it. He really he's in love with it. I mean, me and him would train for like 3 hours. Yeah. And developing not technique, but putting techniques together. I have plenty of technique. He has plenty of wrestling. We put it together. We're coming up with some pretty cool stuff. So, yeah, I think this year's going to be a big year for that style of fighting. And, yeah, I have a couple guys that, want to be guard freaks, and they just do what I do. Right. But, there's Goran Relic. He's fighting in Australia. Mm-hmm. He trained with me, and I taught him a lot of tricks. We got it along really great. He's a tough kid. Yeah. But, my style of grappling is really rough. It's really mean. We're tough to each other. Everybody that I work with is a tough guy. I don't want to work with guys that are going to squeal or you get kind of sensitive. So Randy's a tough guy. If I let him up a little bit, instead of getting sore, he comes after me. I like that. That's the kind of guy that's my background. Armenians are pretty tough. I remember I would ask Caro about a technique, and I would demonstrate it on him, and he would just rip out and just clock me. And I wasn't going full speed. It's not like we were grappling. And he was like, "You're an idiot. That's too many steps. You're getting too creative. Stick to the basics." Really? And that's what his way of teaching me. It wasn't like, "No, that's not a good one." He would literally just clock me, and I'm like, "Okay." And that was the learning environment. It was like black and white. It's like you better learn to get good and tough, or quit the damn sport and get out of our way.
See, that's interesting for wrestlers because I think when they get matched up against jiu-jitsu guys right off his back, they're a little hesitant to go down, and then they play to maybe their weakness, which might be their striking, and then they're just all out of sorts. Right. So you're actually kind of almost providing them with the antidote to go in a guard and feel safe and dominate. And I'll tell you, I don't know if it was all you, but if you talk about mentally breaking people and brutalizing them, I think that happened to Mark Coleman, and I think it happened to Nate. He didn't get finished, but I think Nate got mentally broken in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Nate's Marquardt, I don't know if he got broken because in that third round he definitely tried to finish him.
I would say really frustrated and kind of just lost his entire game plan.
Yeah, I don't think Chael let him settle in, and I love Nate Marquardt. He's like one of the greatest fighters out there. Mm-hmm. Chael has a lot of bragging rights right now. And with Randy, we trained really hard for that fight. Like after the fight, I was just like, man, maybe we trained too hard for that fight. But it wasn't disrespectful for to Coleman. It's just we love to train. It's like we love doing what we're doing, and I had a certain game plan with this fight that I was actually thinking of the next fight, so I could get a lot of technique in. So that way the next camp, I don't have to cover that material. We're already moved past that. I mean, Manion and I have been working closely for 6 months. In the first camp was all defense against Nogueira, because Nogueira is such a slick submission guy. It paid off. So second fight, Brandon didn't get to the ground. If it did, I think Randy would have subbed him. Honestly, Brandon's a great grappler, but we really had a good plan, and I think Randy could have executed it. Then we took all that training. Then we did a camp against Coleman, which was going to be a turtle camp mainly, and a guard camp. Randy developed a guard. He could fight the turtle. We knew Coleman would not fight off his back. He would go turtle. That rear naked choke was something he did a gazillion times in practice. And he did it against, guys like myself and other guys that don't care that he's Randy Couture. And Randy lost in practice majority of the practices. Really? And that first time in a long time in his career. So that fight was an easy day. And he's in love. And we're having so much fun, and we became good friends. So we got a good thing going on at this gym, and we're reaching out. Chael told me, he asked me right after the fight, he said, "Will you help me be Anderson?" I was like, "Get your ass here." Yeah. And I'm friends with, I worked with Matt Linden before, and I got a good connection with a lot of guys. I don't try to I just focus on the information. It's not about me and who I am. It's about the information. And that's pretty much how I try to look at myself.
All right. Well, we can talk about Chael and Anderson down the road because that's still a ways off. But one last thing to close on. So we talked about wrestlers and going against jiu-jitsu guys and feeling comfortable. So how does that apply to strikers? Because if Randy gets the matchup that I think they'd like to, get him down the road, and I know a lot of people out there, I don't know if you read the web, but there are a lot of people who are actually kind of killing Randy right now, saying that Dana White's being ridiculous, saying that he's a top 5 light heavyweight. The guys he's going to match up with probably, and you can react to that in a second, are going to be mostly stand-up guys. Rashad, I think, is now a stand-up guy. Quentin Jackson is more of a stand-up guy. Obviously, Hua and Machida mostly want to stay on the feet. So how does that work against a stand-up guy?
I think Randy's proven pretty well that he can get stand-up guys on the ground at will, except Brandon. Brandon's a Greco-Roman wrestler. Randy is the top 5 fighter. I mean, he's been in there with some tough guys.
Well, I think a lot of people are underestimating what Coleman was bringing, and I think you look back, and I don't want to be an apologist for Coleman, but Stephan Bonner is not garbage, and he went in there and he wore down Stephan Bonner. Stephan Bonner's a pretty solid fighter, and then you look at what Randy did to Coleman, and he destroyed him.
Right. I mean, Coleman fighting Randy was a tall order for Coleman in his camp, and they just didn't get off. But it's because we worked harder. Right. I mean, we worked really damn hard. Randy is tough, definitely a top 5 fighter in that weight class. The thing is, the 205 division is the toughest division in the UFC, and it's proven that because the guys can't hold on to the belt. I mean, I don't think Machida won that fight against Shogun, but he's the only guy that retained the belt in a while. And you're talking about Rashad, he is a striker, but his last fight was a wrestling match for him, right. And I think Randy can compete with any of them. And now that he's looking for submissions, he can stop that fight. And if you want to talk about title contention, Randy is the ultimate 5-round fighter. He is, period. Mm-hmm. Randy is not a 3-round fighter. And he's honing in and being good like that. For most fighters, they're not 5-round fighters. Randy is. That's what he goes. So you put him in there against these guys. They got 25 minutes with Randy Couture, and if you think it's going to be one-sided, you're really wrong. I mean, Nogueira, when he fought Nogueira, that was one of the best fights I've ever seen, and we lost. And Nogueira could not finish him, and that was an amazing fight. But Nogueira has been the top 2 forever. He's a stud. So losing to him is nothing. I mean, that was an amazing fight. Right. So people, I don't know what they're doing. I guess maybe they're hating because it looked so easy because Coleman didn't look his best. Mm-hmm. But I think Brandon Vera is probably going to be a champion one day, and people will be like, "Wow, he did sneak out a win on him." Mm-hmm. So I didn't even read that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. That's getting a little too creative, if you ask me.